Chapter 3. They finished lunch and the woman went to the utensils and dishes, washing them in the kitchen and preparing for dinner, and her husband sat close to her, smoking and reading the newspaper, al-Humanitarian, the humanity, which is widespread among the working class and the needy. Jano left himself to his games, his guns, and his fierce battle, and Mohsen closed. He placed his book in front of him and read 2 pages, then his eyes froze on the book, and he no longer read or saw anything. He left the room, left the earth, and lost himself in the seas of contemplation. The evening finally came, and the garden doorbell rang. Janu left his game and ran towards him, then he quickly shouted in joy, "Mama is here, Baba Hadar." A woman appeared in the prime of work, with an attractive face. Jano was attached to her, gently pushing him away from her, and behind her was her husband, Andre, and they both showed signs of fatigue and exhausted strength. The old woman wiped her hands on the kitchen towel she was wearing, and went to her son-in-law, hugging her, looking at her face and saying with feigned regret, "You are tired and exhausted, Jermaine." The wife replied, looking at her young husband, "We did not leave the factory until this hour." The old woman went to her son, hugging him, and shouting with real heat, "And you too, Andre. What is all this paleness?" "Mother, we work 8 hours a day." Andre said it while looking at his father, and his father had thrown the newspaper from his hand, and went to Jermaine and Jano and held them out. When he heard what Andre said, he shouted sharply, "What brutality! This is no longer called work, but rather slavery. Slavery has not ceased to exist. It has taken on another form that suits the 20th century. Here are armies of slaves harnessed by a few members of the capitalist masters." Janu looked up at his grandfather, but did not realize the reason for his sharpness. Andre turned to the newspaper lying on the ground, smiled and said, "Is this what you read today in the Humanite, father?" The man replied earnestly, "Yes, and isn't this the truth?" "Without a doubt, this is the truth, but what do we, the poor, do? Working hours should be reduced at least, so that you can regain some of your freedom, some of your time, and so that you can save what remains of your health, and so that we, the unemployed, can find work and income to make ends meet. You are straining yourself to speak, father. I have told the truth, we are slaves of the 20th century, and when did slaves have the right to object or the right to propose?" The sheikh wanted to answer, but Jano fidgeted and looked at his parents and his grandmother and shouted, "Why did Gazelle slow down?" He made the child tug at his mother's clothes urgently in asking, so the mother gently hit his little hand and took off her clothes from him. His grandmother wanted to cut him, so she said to him, "Go and bring Monsieur Mohsen." It was time for dinner. Andre was alerted and immediately asked, "Where is the bird of the East? I missed asking about him when I entered." "In his room." Andre headed towards the stairs of the house, then came back and said, "I do not see a light in his room." The old mother replied, as she cut a long loaf of bread, "He is in his room, sitting at his desk. Evening always surprises him, and he is in front of his book, motionless. I often enter his room and find darkness enveloping him, and he is sitting motionless like a statue. So I turn the electric switch on for him. He's weird. I know him very well." Then the iron doorbell rang, and Jano came from among everyone to the door, shouting like a bird, "Gazelle." Everyone gathered around the table, and they had just finished dinner, and they remained in their seats talking about socialism, which had spread in Paris and had become a fad that people followed and imitated. Life has become difficult, and the price of the franc has fallen to the bottom. France is now the prey of American moneymakers, and these Americans have become so arrogant and proud of their wealth that none of them lights a cigarette except with a burning bill, under the eyes of the poor French people. There her old husband shouted in anger, "What scoundrels they are!" Then the old woman suddenly went on, as if she had discovered something, "There is no doubt that they are the reason for the high prices of vegetables, meat, and fruits." She cast a questioning look at those present, and she saw Jano and his cousin, Gazelle, sitting close together, eating gâteau and not stopping talking. Jano's share ran out, so he looked at Gazelle, who was 2 years older than him, while she was eating slowly and courteously. The little girl became aware of his idle mouth and his greedy looks, so she did not hesitate and offered her friend everything she had left. Janu did not refuse her and accepted her gift from her, and began to devour what she gave him, while looking at her with smiling eyes, full of gratitude, but he did not say anything. Something. There his grandmother frowned at him and shouted, "Janu, don't you say anything to her." The child turned to his grandmother in naivety. "What do I say?" "You say what?" "You say what people say when they accept something from others." "What do people say?" "They say, 'Thank you, and I've taught you that 1,000 times.'" Then he turned to the child's parents in despair. "I have no choice but to discipline this boy, and I will be honest with you, this is not my job, rather it is the job of the parents, and as long as you leave your son to me all day and go to the factory, there is no hope that your child will grow up as a teacher." Righteous character. Andre replied indifferently, "Do you think, mother, that this is our work? This is the work of the school, and we will introduce it to the school. As for us, we have work, as you know." "Yes, the factory." The sheikh said sarcastically, "Of course, the factory." Jermaine shrugged her shoulders, and the old woman said sharply, "Don't shrug your shoulders, Jermaine. Never forget for a moment the importance of the influence of the home. In our time, the home was everything. All good things are gone with the passing of our time." Andre and his brother Marcel said at the same time, "Where is the house today, mother?" The old woman pondered for a moment what they said, then replied, "You are right, there is no longer a home, alas. There is no longer a family, the man and woman are in the factory all day." What a strange time. The sheikh said with strength and conviction, "I told you that the era of slaves has returned again." Mohsen noticed this phrase, and his eyes lit up with a strange sparkle. Then he quickly asked permission from those present to go up to his room. They gave him permission with 2 names, so he went up and sat at his desk in the dark, whispering, "Yes, slavery will never cease to exist. Every era has its slavery. And his servants.